Here's going to be a retro review of The Incredible Hulk from 2008. If you've seen the newly released Captain America Brave New World, you know that this film plays a large role in Brave New World's story, as it ties up the loose ends in that film and bring back storylines and characters that hadn't been touched in the MCU in the 18 years since that film released. It's amazing to see, as I never thought I'd see a time where The Incredible Hulk became relevant story-wise in the modern MCU. Because Bruce Banner was recast in between The Incredible Hulk and the character's next appearance in The Avengers, and the Hulk himself was redesigned for that film, it never really felt like The Incredible Hulk was actually a part of that continuity. It took years before that film was properly acknowledged when they brought back General Ross, played by the late William Hurt, in Civil War, and a few installments after that. The next piece was bringing back Emil Blonsky, aka The Abomination, in Shang-Chi and She-Hulk. But Captain America Brave New World is the MCU installment that ties the Incredible Hulk story threads full circle. If you went in to watch Brave New World having not seen the Incredible Hulk or don't remember it too well, then you were probably f***ed while watching that film, because it's hard for some of its story threads to have a proper impact without having the context provided from the Incredible Hulk. Brave New World is as much the Incredible Hulk 2 as it is a Captain America film or a continuation of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. In The Incredible Hulk, Bruce Banner desperately seeks for a cure for his Hulk-fueled rage while being on the run from the U.S. military, led by General Thunderbolt Ross and his field lieutenant Emil Blonsky. Eventually, Banner encounters a force that even the Hulk may not be able to overcome. The movie takes an interesting approach to its setup, as it's very much the spiritual successor and big screen version of the 80s Bill Bixby show, and even kind of a rebooted continuation of the 2003 Eric Bana Hulk film, based on how that film ended and where this film begins setting-wise. The film is noticeably more somber and has a depressed tone compared to the rest of the MCU, even more serious films like Civil War or Black Widow. Given the nature of this particular Hulk story where he's on the run and his life has gone to shit, this tone is appropriate. There's probably no more than about 5 legit funny or chuckle-worthy moments throughout this film. It doesn't make it the most fun film to watch, but I appreciate the film's story and tone being tailored to the Hulk. In terms of effectiveness, I think the movie was at its best during the initial stuff with Bruce in Brazil keeping a low profile and him eventually having to evade Ross and his army. I gotta say though that General Ross is just unbelievably stupid in knowing that confronting Bruce almost always leads to a Hulk appearance, so he's willingly putting people's lives at major risk. But then again, Brave New World confirmed that he's a pretty shady individual. I can't say that I love Emil Blonsky's character arc. It only makes sense in assuming that the super soldier serum enhanced his desire for power, which led to him eventually wanting also Hulk's power, but it's not exactly an impactful villain arc. Hulk's raw power is of course what audiences want to see, and it leads to some decent action scenes. The first Hulk out scene treats him more like a monster in the shadows where you hardly see him, but it is effective. The first full Hulk showcase scene at the university was cool. The CGI is consistently solid through the film. It's about as good as you could hope for in 2008. Much better than what we saw in 2003's Hulk. I think the best Hulk scene is the scene with him and Betty in the rain. That was just a beautiful scene visually and emotionally. I always thought it was tragic how Betty was utilized in the MCU. She's ride or die with Bruce throughout this film, and in a brutal spot in having to balance her love for him with the wishes of her father, General Ross. I thought Liv Tyler was good in the role, though she oddly sounds out of breath in a lot of scenes. It's crazy how Bruce never mentioned or brought her up once, and how post-Avengers, Hulk was recognized as a hero and he was no longer on the run. What a dick. The funniest scene in the film is showing how Bruce can't have sex with Betty, otherwise he'll get too excited and Hulk out. The man truly has a reason to be depressed, that's for sure. The real thing that'll tie that love story full circle is seeing Betty Ross and Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner together. On that subject, Ed Norton's Bruce Banner feels entirely different from Ruffalo's. That's not a problem in the context of this movie, since this was the character's first appearance. I'll say there's things I prefer about both interpretations, but a lot of it comes down to the writing. Norton's Banner works for this more depressed kind of film, plus he doesn't get to interact with big personalities like Tony Stark or Thor. Basically all of the film plays out like a man on the run kind of film, which it should, and it works fine on that level. But everything builds up to Emil Blonsky's full transformation into the Abomination and laying waste to Harlem. This is the highlight of the film for many, but over the years it's where I believe the film just kind of loses its brain and just becomes kinda eh. Blonsky just doesn't have a very rewarding character arc. It's not like god-awful or anything, but it's just kinda eh, and it leads to an eh kind of character. I think a major problem is that the actual part where he turns into the Abomination feels rushed due to some dog editing. The actual climax here has always been overhyped to me. Maybe I was initially just set up for failure. I remember going in to watch the film in the theaters and being told that it was a 26-minute fight between Hulk and Abomination. And the fight certainly ain't that. You get about a minute of some pretty good one-on-one Hulk versus Abomination action before the military gets involved and the whole thing just dissolves and ends super quick from there, leading to an unsatisfying ending for me. Again, the whole thing hinges on Blonsky's story, but there's just not a lot to it. In the big picture, The Incredible Hulk, definitely not incredible, enjoyable in parts, things I definitely do appreciate, but overall the film is unfortunately meh for me. I still think it's a watchable movie, far from being a piece of shit, just not special, even considering when this film was released, which was back when the MCU was in its infancy. But as I said in my Brave New World review, I very much appreciate this film's loose ends when it came to the setup for the leader, or what happened to other characters like Betty Ross or the Abomination, eventually being addressed in the MCU shows or movies. Like I said before in this review, I think it'd be really cool if you saw Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner and Betty Ross together in a scene somehow, but who knows when the that'll ever happen. Probably not. So that'll do it for this retro review of The Incredible Hulk. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching.